Hi guys, I wanted to make a quick video that covers where to find the answers to deadline 3 of the scholarly article project when you are looking at ProQuest and at your article. You can find most of these, I think probably all of them, in the document itself, but you can also use some of the functions of ProQuest to find the answers as well. So I'm going to go through with this example article, and again, this covers like where do you find each one of the answers to the questions in deadline 3, which is preview your article. So the first question that I'm asking you is, what is the title of the article? If you have your PDF copy of the article, you'll usually find that the title is right, in bold or larger letters somewhere at the top of the first page or the second page. And then also here in ProQuest, this text right here, the largest text on the page is the title of the scholarly article that you are reading. Another thing that you can do, to find the title, if for some reason this isn't working for you, which it should be, is if you look at the citation, and I'm going to look at the MLA format, 8th edition citation. So if you look at the citation for this, the article title is going to be housed in quotation marks as the second part of the citation. So that's the title of your article. The second question, what does the title suggest about the content of the article? When you're answering that question, just try to give me a little more than just the title. If I'm looking at this example scholarly article that's titled Object Relations in Harry Potter, I wouldn't want to just say it suggests it's going to be about Harry Potter, or it suggests it's going to be about object relations in Harry Potter. Obviously that's what it's going to be about, but what does that mean? Like, give me a little more detail there. For me, I'm thinking objects, like, I don't know, maybe some of like the magical objects in Harry Potter and how Harry Potter relates to those objects. Just kind of try to paraphrase the title, put it in your own words, give me some more details as you're answering that question. As far as, what does the title suggest about the content, there's nowhere to find that. You could read the abstract if you want, but really we're just answering the question based off the title. So you are responding to that off the top of your head. How many authors wrote the article? A couple places where you can go to look at the authors is, again, in the citation. The citation is always going to give you the author's first or last name followed by first name. And if you just see one, then you will find, you can say just one author wrote the article. That's the case often, but just as often the case is that multiple authors wrote it. If you see in your citation something like et al. Or an ellipsis ... then that would suggest that there were a lot of authors who wrote it, and that would come kind of like right here where I'm circling with my mouse, or at the right before the title. If you saw that content, then what you would probably have to do is come back over here to below the title on the main page of ProQuest, and you would need to find the full list of authors' names. If that list again had an ellipsis or an et al., ETAL, if it had a phrase like that, then what you would want to do then is come down and look at the PDF copy of the document, where you will definitely see every author listed right there, because they're all going to want to get credit for the work that they've done. So you can look here as well if you're seeing something like a ... or ellipsis or an et al. Phrase. The question that most students, or the question that's wrong the most number of times, is the question that follows the question about the authors. That is, in what scholarly publication or scholarly journal was the article published? Okay, so a lot of my students in the past have answered ProQuest Central. they have said that this article was published in ProQuest Central. That is not true. This article is housed in a database called ProQuest Central. Think of a database like an online library. Okay, so think about, let's just picture the book Harry Potter. Okay, let's say you can find Harry Potter in Huskins Library at Mitchell Community College. Does that mean that Mitchell Community College published Harry Potter? No, definitely not. They would have a ton more money than they do now. So what that means is that that's just a place to find the book, in this case an article, but it's not the publisher, it's not who brought us the content. It's not the people who worked with the author to make sure that the content was ready to read. So ProQuest Central is not a publisher, they are just a database. So this brings us to the question, where do you find the publisher? The publisher is the title of the scholarly publication or the scholarly journal, and that's going to come below the author. You can see it here on ProQuest. In this case, our example, Object Relations in Harry Potter, was published in the Journal of the American Academy of Psychoanalysis and Dynamic Psychiatry. Another place where you can find the name, if for some reason the ProQuest main page does not give you the journal title, again, in the citation, immediately following the title of the article and written in italics is where you are going to see the name of that scholarly publication where the article itself was published. So that's the information that I'm looking for here in that fourth question. How many pages is the article? A couple of things you can do to figure that out is you can either do a little bit of math. The information I'm highlighting here, so below the journal title, kind of on that, I don't know, third, fourth line or so, after the year, you see 509-520. That's the page range. That means that in the Journal of American Academy of Psychoanalysis and Dynamic Psychiatry, if you went to this volume and this issue, on page 509 is where you would find the beginning of this article. Another thing you can do is if you have access to the PDF, then you can kind of move your mouse down over the PDF and you're going to see that like the PDF reader gives you the total page count. For example, you see 13 here. Of course, another option for you is to just count the pages as you scroll. You've got 1, 2, and you can just kind of scroll all the way to the bottom, including the citations. And once you're done, you can look at the references page and count how many total pages was that. That's probably the most tedious way to do it, but you certainly could if you wanted to. The next question is, does the article have an abstract? So there's a couple of ways that you could find the article's abstract. If it has one, it will be published on the PDF, so it's always going to be on the first page or second page, just like right before the article begins. And you'll want to look for the word abstract. It will be identified specifically. So in this case, we see the word abstract right after the author's name, and then we get that summary of the content. The other thing you can do, of course, is look at abstract/details and see if ProQuest has given us the abstract, and of course, we have this paper here, or this paragraph here, to identify that yes, there is an abstract. How long is it? Most abstracts will be about a paragraph. You don't need to count how many sentences it is or how many words it is. That's not, I don't need that. You can just say, it's about a paragraph or it's a couple sentences. However, you can quickly identify the answer to that question is perfectly fine. Now, another kind of tedious question is the next one. Apart from the abstract, how many labeled sections does it have and what are their labels? If students are getting questions wrong, this might be another one that they get wrong. Sometimes students won't tell me what their labels are, and then they'll get like half a point or something like that taken off. So when we're talking about labeled sections, we're talking about these types of labels. You want to physically see or read the labels in the on the PDF. That's the place where you're going to find the answer to this question. So I see we have introduction. I'm scrolling down. I see we have a pre-Oedipal frame of reference. That's another label. As I continue to scroll, I see the magic world as the unconscious, the return of repressed objects, accessing the good objects, integration of opposites, the battle between good and the bad in the ego, the wish for reparation, the role of identification in reparative efforts, Harry in reparation, and then conclusion. I don't necessarily consider references to be one of the labeled sections, but you could include it or not. But I would just want you to count them and then also make sure you identify like what are the labels. I want to see that as well. If your article has no labels, just say, it doesn't have any labeled sections. The next thing that you're going to do is answer the question, what appears to be the citation style used for the sources that are cited? So you want to go down to the bottom under references, and you just want to look at those citations or those references. If you are seeing something like an author's last name, a first initial, and a year in parentheses, you can pretty quickly identify that as APA. If you are seeing a citation that looks similar to, a full last name and first name, the title following that, kind of a longer citation, that looks really similar to what you see in your MLA citations, you can identify that. If you're seeing something completely different, or if you have no idea, you can always email me and say, could you help me figure out what citation style this is? Or you can say, this doesn't look like MLA, it doesn't look like APA, I don't have enough experience with citations to identify what else this could be. If you don't know, I'm not going to count this wrong. I just want you to answer the question in the best way that you can. Let's see. And then the final question that I ask you here is, how many sources are cited at the end of the article? And so this can be tedious. I'm going to see if there's another way around it. In this example, there's not very many sources. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sources. That's easy. I can count them really quickly. Okay, so well, let me look at this really quick. I was going to say, I think the other thing that you could do is look at references and see if these are the references that are cited in the article, and it looks like they are. Yeah, these are the same that are cited within. So, it's interesting because when we counted them on the references page, there were only 8, but here, we see the number 13. And I think what ProQuest is doing is counting every instance of a source being cited. So for example, we see that the author has cited M. Klein's text, Love, Guilt, and Reparation. And then also again down here. So it looks like ProQuest is like double counting some sources. If you're looking at your references page and there's like pages and pages of references or sources listed, just use the number that's found here. Otherwise, if there's just a couple, I would just count them out yourself. So that's how you find all the answers. Again, the biggest question students miss is the question about what scholarly publication was your article published in. And the final word I'll have is just that the answer is never going to be ProQuest. It's always some kind of journal or something like that you're going to find sort of as you look deeper into ProQuest. If you have any questions about this or any of the other deadlines, just shoot me a quick email and I should respond shortly.